Have you ever stood before a grave that pulsed with an unnatural light, whispering your name, as if the dead refused to stay buried, especially on Halloween, when the barriers between worlds crumble just enough to let the vengeful slip through? Imagine the chill of Salem's fog wrapping around you like skeletal fingers, pulling you toward a stone etched with accusations of witchcraft from 1692, where the spirit of Abigail Hobbs doesn't just haunt. She hunts those who mock her unrest. This isn't some fabricated tale to sell tickets to ghost tours. It's a raw, unfiltered account from Sarah Ellis, a 29-year-old barista who's called Salem, home her entire life shared in a 2024 interview on the Monsters Among Us podcast, where host Derek Hayes collects caller-submitted supernatural encounters that leave even skeptics questioning reality. Sarah's story unfolded on October 31st, 2023, during one of those crisp New England nights where the air smells of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke, but beneath it all lingers the metallic tang of fear from centuries past. Salem, Massachusetts, with its Charter Street Cemetery, known locally as the Old Burying Point, has long been a nexus for the paranormal, its soil soaked in the blood of the infamous witch trials that claimed 20 lives and scarred the collective psyche of a nation. The cemetery, established in 1637, predates the hysteria by over half a century, its crooked slate markers leaning like drunken sentinels, guarding secrets they'd rather forget. Sarah, raised on stories of spectral hysterics and Puritan paranoia, had always dismissed the hype as tourist bait, the kind peddled by shops hawking crystal balls and Ouija boards along Essex Street. She was practical, grounded in the rhythm of steaming lattes and early morning shifts at her cafe near the waterfront, where the harbor's waves lapped indifferently against the docks. But that Halloween, with the town bloated on out-of-towners in pointed hats and capes, Sarah found herself swept into a dare with her tight-knit group of friends. Mike, the burly mechanic with a laugh that could shatter glass. Lena, the artist whose sketches captured the macabre beauty of decay. And Tom, the quiet history buff who'd devoured every book on the trials from Cotton Mather's sermons to Stacy Schiff's modern dissections. They'd planned a low-key night, costumes optional, beers mandatory, starting with pumpkin ale at the witch house and ending with a midnight stroll through the cemetery gates, which the city conveniently leaves unlocked for atmospheric wanderings. It was supposed to be ironic, Sarah recounted, her voice still laced with that tremor from the retelling. Like, look at us, grown-ass adults playing at being scared in a place that's more theme park than tomb now. The group arrived around 11 p.m., the moon a bloated sickle slicing through scudding clouds, casting erratic shadows that danced like imps across the uneven paths. Pumpkins grinned from nearby porches, their carved faces flickering with candlelight, while distant laughter from costumed revelers echoed like mocking echoes of the accused's pleas. Sarah wore a simple black hoodie and jeans, no makeup, no pretense. Mike sported a pirate patch over one eye, swigging from a flask of rum-spiked cider. Lena had gone as a Victorian mourner, veil trailing like smoke. Tom, ever the purist, donned a tricorn hat and carried a battered copy of The Wonders of the Invisible World tucked under his arm. They slipped through the wrought iron gate, the hinges groaning a warning no one heeded, and fanned out among the graves, flashlights slicing yellow beams through the inky dark. The air was unnaturally still, the kind of quiet that presses on your eardrums, amplifying every crunch of gravel underfoot. They traded jokes at first, Mike belting out a off-key rendition of Monster Mash. Lena snapping Polaroids of crooked headstones that read like a roll call of the damned. Here lies Richard Gardner, died 1685, drowned at sea. Bet he swam with the fishes, literally. Tom launched into an impromptu lecture on Abigail Hobbs, the 17-year-old servant girl accused at 14 of spectral attacks. Her testimony a tangled web of coerced confessions that fueled the frenzy. Her grave, unmarked officially but approximated by locals near the eastern edge, was their target, a slab of weathered granite half sunk into the earth, inscribed faintly with AH 1692, a modern addition by sympathizers who felt the weight of historical guilt. As they approached, the banter faltered. Sarah felt it first, a prickling at the base of her skull, like static electricity before a storm, raising the fine hairs on her arms, despite the mild autumn warmth. "Guys, you feel that?" she whispered, her beam catching motes of dust swirling in unnatural patterns, defying the breeze. Mike snorted. "Feel what? Your imagination on overdrive?" But his voice cracked just enough to betray him. They clustered around the stone, Tom's finger tracing the etched letters as he murmured. She was just a kid, manipulated into naming names. Her affliction was probably epilepsy or ergot poisoning, not demons. That's when Lena's Polaroid flashed. Illegal in the dark, but who cared? And in the burst of light, Sarah saw it. A faint luminescence blooming from the soil at the grave's base. Not the steady glow of phosphorescence, but a rhythmic pulsing, like a vein throbbing under skin. Blue-white and ethereal, it seeped upward, coiling like smoke from a hidden fire, illuminating the etched AH in a spectral script that seemed to writhe. "Holy shit," Tom breathed, his book slipping to the ground with a soft thud that echoed too loudly. The light intensified, stretching into tendrils that quested blindly, brushing against Sarah's jeans like cool mist. The temperature plummeted, Sarah's watch face fogged instantly, her exhaled breath clouding thick as if plunged into January's freeze. And then, the whisper. Faint at first, a susurrus like wind through dry leaves, but coalescing into words, her words. "Sarah, why do you mock me?" The voice was feminine, young and ragged, laced with the rasp of a throat raw from screams in a crowded courtroom. Sarah staggered back, her flashlight clattering to the path, its beam spinning wildly to catch glimpses of elongated shadows stretching from the grave like accusing fingers. Mike's flask hit the ground next, spilling cider that steamed on the frost-rimed grass. "This isn't funny! Who's out there?" He bellowed, but his bravado dissolved as every light in their possession flickered in unison. Lena's phone screen glitching to static, Tom's backup lantern sputtering like a candle in a gale, Sarah's dropped beam strobing erratically. Darkness swallowed them whole, absolute and velvet thick, broken only by that persistent glow now shaping itself. A silhouette, humanoid and slight, with skirts that billowed without wind and hair cascading like unraveling threads. The figure hovered, translucent yet solid in its malice, eyes, mere hollows, fixated on Sarah, who felt an invisible weight pressing on her chest, as if the trial's hysteria had leaped the centuries to claim her lungs. The air hummed with fragmented pleas. "It pricks! It pains!" Echoes of courtroom cries, and Sarah's mind reeled with visions unbidden. Puritan bonfires, iron manacles biting wrists, the acrid smoke of spectral evidence burning away sanity. Panic erupted. Lena screamed, a piercing wail that shattered the hush, bolting toward the gate with arms flailing. Tom scooped his book and ran, muttering frantic Hail Marys despite his agnostic leanings. Mike grabbed Sarah's arm, yanking her after them, but midway she felt it. The tug. Not a yank, but a deliberate pull on her hoodie zipper, fabric bunching as if gripped by small, insistent hands. She twisted, glimpsing pale digits phasing through the cloth, nails blackened like those of a hanged woman. "Leave. Or join." The whisper slithered again, hot breath on her ear despite the cold. They burst through the gate in a tangle of limbs and curses, collapsing onto the dew-slick street where revelers milled oblivious, their painted faces grotesque under sodium lamps. The cemetery loomed behind, silent once more, the glow extinguished like a snuffed wick. Sarah retched into the gutter, her body racked with shivers that no jacket could quell. Back at her apartment, a cramped walk-up above a witchcraft supply shop, she stripped off the hoodie, only to discover 3 parallel scratches on the inner sleeve, equidistant and precise, as if clawed by a quill pen dipped in rage. No blood, but the fabric frayed at the edges, threads curling like question marks. Sleep evaded her that night, the whispers replaying in loops, mingling with the tick of her radiator and the distant hoot of an owl. Morning brought no relief. News feeds buzzed with similar reports. Tourists fleeing the burying point at dawn, babbling of lights and voices, one couple claiming their camera-captured orbs orbiting the same grave.
Sarah confided in Lena over coffee, who admitted her Polaroid developed a smudged figure in the foreground, indistinguishable, yet eerily childlike.
Tom, burying himself in archives, unearthed a 2022 report from paranormal investigator Emily Carter, who documented electromagnetic spikes near Abigail's marker during a full moon, spikes correlating with auditory anomalies, whispers captured on EVPs declaring, "They lied. I burn still." Carter's team, using tools from flux detectors to thermal cams, logged temperature drops of 20 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds, unexplained by weather or proximity to the harbor. In 2023 alone, the Salem Historical Society fielded 47 complaints of unsettling presences post-Halloween, up 15% from prior years, attributing it to the thinning veil folklore that peaks on Samhain. Sarah's encounter wasn't isolated. A 2024 Gallup poll cited in Reader's Digest's Ghost Roundup showed 37% of Americans now believe in hauntings, a spike from 32% in 2020, fueled by personal anecdotes like hers shared on platforms like Reddit's R Paranormal, where threads on Salem swell annually with EVPs and shaky videos. But statistics don't capture the visceral, the way Sarah's skin still crawls when passing the cemetery, or how Mike sold his tools kit and took a desk job inland, swearing off shadows forever. Lena burned her sketches, each one tainted by faint outlines she hadn't drawn. Tom, he wrote a self-published chapbook, Echoes of the Accused, donating proceeds to witch trial memorials, but privately admits the figure visits his dreams, not as foe, but petitioner, begging for the exoneration history denies. Sarah, once the skeptic, now salts her doorways and avoids October 31st. Yet she can't shake the pull, the sense that Abigail's unrest seeks witnesses, not just wanderers. What if that glow isn't rage, but a cry for justice, amplified by the holiday's pagan roots when spirits roam free? Sarah wonders aloud in her podcast retelling, "I went to mock the dead, but they mocked me back, showed me how thin the line is between accuser and accused." And in the quiet hours, when Salem's streets empty and the fog rolls in from the sea, she swears she hears it still. Her name, whispered not in threat, but invitation. To what end? Only the grave knows. If this tale grips you, the kind that burrows under your nails and lingers like damp earth, then hit subscribe. It's free, no spells required, and together we'll chase these shadows, because turning away means the whispers win. What haunts you? Share in the comments. Your story might be the next to break the silence. As we delve deeper into the night, consider this. Every stone in that cemetery holds a fragment of fury, and on Halloween, they stir. Sarah learned that the hard way, her scratch is a scar of solidarity with the silenced. But scars fade. The supernatural doesn't. It's out there, waiting for the next foolhardy soul to cross its path. Would you dare the burying point under a witching moon? Or does Sarah's whisper echo in your ear already? Leave or join? The choice is yours, but remember, the dead don't forget. Have you ever hitched a ride on Halloween night only to realize the driver isn't human? Her eyes glazing with fanatic fire as she brands you a demon, gun in hand, dragging you to a barn for a prayer-fueled exorcism that blurs the line between savior and slaughterer. This isn't a slasher flick trope. It's the harrowing reality of Jake Harlan, a 19-year-old factory worker from Shallow Water, Texas, whose 2021 brush with a self-proclaimed holy warrior turned a festive night into a fight for survival, detailed in a 2024 episode of the Grave Talks podcast, where host Tony Brueski interviews survivors of demonic delusions that straddle faith and felony. Jake's ordeal began under the wide Texas sky on October 31st, 2021, in the dusty panhandle town of Shallow Water, a speck on the map 10 miles northwest of Lubbock, where oil rigs pierce the horizon like mechanical sentinels, and the wind carries whispers of forgotten sins. At 19, Jake was all lanky limbs and easy grins, fresh from high school and punching clocks at the X-Fab semiconductor plant, where silicon wafers birthed tech miracles amid the hum of assembly lines. Life was simple. Morning carpools with co-workers, pit stops at Hebrew's coffee shop for black sludge and glazed donuts that stuck to his teeth like guilty pleasures. It was there, amid the sizzle of bacon and chatter of ranch hands, that he met Rita, a 20-year-old waitress with sun-kissed curls and a laugh that cut through the grease like sunlight. Their banter started over crullers. Plain or chocolate? Wrong answer and you are out. Escalating to swap numbers scrawled on a napkin stained with hazelnut creamer. By mid-October, texts flew like fireflies. Memes about bad exes, playlists heavy on Luke Bryan, invitations to stargaze on her rooftop where the Milky Way sprawled unapologetic. Jake, wild about her from the jump, felt the pull of something real amid his routine grind. Halloween loomed, and with no plans beyond solo PUBG marathons in his trailer, he jumped at Rita's invite to a bash at the country club. Think hay bales, fog machines, and a playlist pulsing with Travis Scott remixes. "Tag along with me and the girls," she texted, adding a winky emoji that set his pulse racing. He dug out his old Ghostface costume from 2 Halloweens back. Black robe, scream mask, the works. Ironic armor for a night of flirting and fleeting touches. Rita picked him up in her beat-up Ford Focus, the air thick with vanilla air freshener and anticipation. Her friends a whirlwind of sequins and shots in the back seat. The club sprawled under strings of orange lights, bass thumping from speakers rigged to mimic thunder, costumed bodies grinding on the dance floor amid plastic skeletons dangling like piñatas. Jake played the charmer, spinning Rita under strobe lights, her laughter a balm against the awkwardness of meeting her crew. Tipsy sorority types eyeing his factory calluses with polite curiosity. Hours blurred in a haze of jello shots and stolen kisses behind the photo booth, until Rita vanished to the bathroom, returning pale as ectoplasm. "My ex," she hissed, eyes darting to the throng. "He's here. Supposed to be on an oil rig in the Gulf, but nope, change of plans. You gotta go, Jake. He's unhinged. It'll end in fists if he sees us." Her ex, Travis, was legendarily toxic. Bar fights, possessive texts at 3 a.m., a rap sheet for DUIs that painted him as a powder keg in Wranglers. Jake's gut twisted, jealousy souring the buzz, but chivalry won. He pecked her cheek, promised a rain check, and slipped out the side door into the balmy night. The driveway stretched long and graveled, lined with luxury sedans like sleeping beasts, the party's muffled roar fading behind him. Shallow Water lay 2 hours' walk east along State Highway 84, a lonely ribbon of asphalt flanked by mesquite scrub and cotton fields silvered by moonlight. No Uber in this nowhere. Jake figured the trek would sober him, thoughts of Rita's smile warding off the chill. 10 minutes in, boots scuffing the shoulder, his phone buzzed. Rita. Travis flipped, started a brawl, got booted with his dipshit buddies. "They're pissed, hunting you for a beatdown. Run if you can." Adrenaline surged, sharpening the world to knife-edge clarity. Footsteps? No, just his pounding heart. Headlights crested the rise behind. A convoy of trucks, Travis's crew no doubt, engines growling like hounds on the scent. Jake broke into a jog, robe flapping like broken wings, mask long lost in the club's chaos. Cars whooshed past, indifferent, until one slowed. An unremarkable SUV, silver as a specter, its blinker ticking like a metronome of doom. He glanced over, expecting jeers or worse, but the window rolled down to reveal a middle-aged woman, peroxide blonde in a purple sweater, face creased with concern. "You need a lift, hon? Jogging the highway in that get-up screams trouble." Her voice was warm molasses, laced with a faint twang that screamed, "Soccer mom." "Deborah," she introduced herself, dropping the name like a handshake. Jake hesitated. Stranger danger drilled since kindergarten, but the roar of approaching trucks sealed it. "Shallow Water bound? You're a godsend." He slid in, the leather seat cool against his sweat-damp back. They peeled out, the SUV's tires humming a lullaby as Deborah probed gently. "What's a Ghostface doing hightailing it solo?" Honesty spilled. Rita, the party, the ex's rage, Jake's words tumbling in grateful torrent. Deborah chuckled, maternal and knowing. Dating pool's a shark tank, kid. Find a nice girl, settle down. Life's too short for drama. At 19, marriage sounded like chains, but he nodded politely, steering to safer waters. Her life, the drive. She claimed a teaching gig at the local elementary, 2 kids grown and flown, husband a trucker hauling freight to Amarillo. The highway unspooled, stars pricking the velvet dome overhead, conversation meandering to Halloween lore, tales of black-eyed children and vanishing hitchhikers that made Jake grin nervously. Then, eastbound turnoff onto a dirt track, unmarked and rutted, the SUV jolting over potholes that jarred his teeth. "Pit stop at a friend's?" Deborah said breezily. "Won't be long." Jake's unease flickered. Shallow water lay straight, not this labyrinth of creosote and coyote song. But gratitude muted protest. She'd saved his hide. Small talk bridged the silence. Her church choir, his plant shifts, the way pumpkins' carved eyes seemed to watch. Abruptly, brakes bit gravel. The engine died in a clearing ringed by barbed wire and skeletal oaks. "Why stop?" Jake asked, voice small. Deborah's reply was steel. Her hand delved the door pocket, emerging with a snub-nosed revolver, its bore yawning black as perdition. Time fractured. Jake froze, synapses firing denials. This was prank, viral stunt, anything but the muzzle's cold kiss to his temple. "Bag," she barked, tossing a burlap sack reeking of mildew and malice. "Over your head, demon, or I'll paint this dash with your lies." Demon. The word landed like a slap, her eyes no longer kind but fever-bright, pupils dilated to voids swallowing white. Jake's laugh choked. Joke, right? But her finger whitened on the trigger. "Put it on, or I'll call it self-defense, you lunging at a good Samaritan." Trembling, he complied, the rough weave blinding him to all but muffled thumps of his heart. The engine growled awake, the SUV lurching deeper into nowhere, tires churning red dirt that caked the undercarriage like clotting blood. Questions tumbled. "Where? Why me?" Met with snarls. "Shut your forked tongue, fiend. I hear the devil's honey in your words." Her radio crackled to gospel hymns, fervent and frantic, volume cranked to drown his pleas. Minutes stretched to eternities, the sack's confines amplifying every bump, every shift in her seat. At last, halt. The door yanked open, chill air knifing in. "Out, beast!" Gun prodding his ribs, guiding him stumbling across uneven ground. Barnwood, he guessed, from the splintery give underfoot. Inside, musty with hay and rust, she bound his wrists to a cold metal beam. Pole barn stanchion, maybe, knots biting like accusations. The sack ripped free, revealing dimness pierced by a single bulb swinging lazy from rafters, casting her face in demonic chiaroscuro. The barn squatted on her homestead, a clapboard shack glimpsed through grimy windows. Isolation's crown amid scrubland. "Stay put, or God's wrath finds you first," she spat, vanishing into night. Time dissolved in sweat and speculation. Stockholm flickers wondering if Travis's crew had orchestrated this madness, or if Rita waited frantic calls. Hours. Minutes. Deborah returned, not alone. A girl, 10ish, doe-eyed and doll-dressed, clutching a teddy worn to threads. "See the demon, sweetie?" Deborah cooed, gun loose in her grip. The child blinked at Jake, bound and pleading. "I'm no devil, just a guy walking home," his voice cracking on edges of terror. Deborah knelt, scripture spilling. Ephesians 6, verse 12. "We wrestle not against flesh, but principalities." Prayer erupted, fervent litany invoking chains broken, spirits fled, the girl's treble echoing rote responses. Jake joined desperately. "Our Father who art in heaven." But Deborah drowned him. Lies, the serpent's hiss. Volume escalated to shrieks, the barn a cacophony of clashing faiths, until Jake's throat rawed silent. Deborah commanded, "Look now, child, behold the revealed horror." The girl peered, unblinking, then quavered, "Mommy, I see a boy, crying." No demon. Deborah's face crumpled, shock, then sorrow etching lines deep as canyons. Of course. Look harder. But the child shook curls. Just a scared boy, Mama. That gaze, innocent and piercing, cracked the zealot's armor. Deborah sagged, murmuring, "Mommy erred. A mistake in discernment." Jake echoed hoarse, "Yes, mistake. Let me go, please." The girl teetered on tears, eyes saucers of confusion, but Deborah averted, bundling her away with promises of cocoa and bedtime tales. Solitude gnawed, wrists numb, mind reeling, fanaticism's blade honed by isolation, perhaps scripture twisted by loneliness or loss unspoken. Dawn's gray promise filtered when Deborah reappeared, gun holstered but sack in hand, another clutched like contrition. "God's work demands vigilance," she intoned, voice leaden. "But errors befall even prophets. Vow silence, tell no soul, or heaven revokes mercy." Jake nodded, frenzy, oaths tumbling. "To God, to anyone," sealed lips. Sack resealed his world black, bonds loosed. Her guidance back to the SUV a blind march of compliance. Highway again, bag off at a desolate stretch mirroring his pickup point. Mile marker 84 whispering familiarity. "Roughly here," she said, tone flat as penance. "Godspeed and bless. Silence earns crowns." Tires crunched away, taillights winking farewell to madness. Jake walked, legs jelly, shallow waters lights a mirage of salvation. Dawn broke as he stumbled home, trailer door slamming like judgment. Sheriff called at first light. Report filed, details dissected. Kidnapping, false imprisonment, the works. But Deborah's tale inverted. Picked up a drunk reveler, offered kindness at my farm for coffee. He turned wolf, assault attempted. "Gun saved my life. No witnesses, just he said, she said, his blood alcohol a damning 0.08 from party remnants." Prosecutors balked. "Her fear's credible. You'd be the predator in court, kid. Drop it or risk the label." Rita raged. "Press, damn it!" But Jake balked, visions of mugshots and whispers branding him monster worse than any ghost. MySpace-era stigma loomed. One viral post, and he'd be that guy, unemployable, untouchable. Regret festers still. What if others rode with her, didn't charm the child? Cop's parting shot. No more strangers' cars. Jake heeded, but the barn's echo lingers. Prayers twisted to threats in nightmares. In 2024's Grave Talks retelling, Brueski notes similar cases. 2023 Texas saw 12 exorcism abductions, per FBI logs, faith weaponized in rural voids. Rita faded, too haunted by what-ifs. But Jake shares now, voice steady. "She saw demon, I saw zealot. Both real, both terrifying." Shallow waters highways hum indifferent, but on Halloween's, hitchhikers beware. Salvation might demand your soul first. If this grips your gut, the raw terror of mortal folly masked as divine, click subscribe. Free as grace, no vows but yours. We're in this veil tear together. What's your highway horror? Speak it, lest silence summons worse. The night road calls, but listen. Some drivers carry crosses heavier than guns. Jake learned. Would you thumb a ride under harvest moons? Or walk alone, shadows your only companion? The choice haunts, eternal as her prayers. Have you ever guarded a cell where the prisoner carves a talisman from stone that awakens primal frenzy on All Hallows' Eve, turning brothers in arms into beasts, ripping each other apart, as the inmate vanishes like smoke, his aura a stain that follows you across oceans and lifetimes? This isn't gothic fiction spun from M.R. James, it's the suppressed testimony of Luca Rossi, an Italian-American grandfather born in 1911, whose 1928 encounter in a fascist black site shattered his faith and fueled his exodus to Brooklyn. Recounted posthumously in a 2024 family memoir, serialized on the Uncanny BBC podcast, where host Danny Robbins unpacks real-life poltergeist and possession cases that echo through generations. Luca's nightmare ignited in the scorched hills of Basilicata, southern Italy, under Mussolini's iron fist that seized power in 1922, when the duty's black shirts marched with truncheons and torches, promising rebirth through brutality.
At 17, Luca enlisted in the MVSN, the Voluntary Militia for National Security, a paramilitary horde fanatical as inquisitors, their eagle crests glinting on caps amid the olive groves. Poverty scarred his youth, a goatherd's son in a village where fascism bloomed like blight, speeches crackling from radios bolted to cafe walls, Il Duce's baritone a siren's call to glory. Luca, wiry and wide-eyed, craved purpose, trading shepherd's crook for rifle, his uniform crisp as new dogma. Duty began mundane, patrols quelling strikes, whispers of socialists branded vermin. But zeal earned promotion to a special facility, a clandestine prison carved into limestone cliffs, its cells dripping like wounds, guards sworn to secrecy under penalty of the Havre's midnight knocks. This wasn't for poets or pickpockets. It housed the regime's refuse, communists, Jews, and crucially, the church's heretics, fruits of a devil's bargain where Vatican vaults traded absolution for suppression. Mussolini's concordat with Pius XV in 1929 sanctified the pact, but roots delved deeper. The church, eternal foe of schism, outsourced sin's purge to secular blades. Luca's post overlooked communal yards where chained men hawked phlegm at soccer goals, cigarettes rationed like sacraments. Solitary wing was hell's antechamber, lightless pits for the intractable, echoes amplifying madness. Then the nameless one arrived, October 1928, dragged in chains by Ovra agents, his frame skeletal as famine, black hair matted to a face seamed like parchment. No name yielded under fists or flails. "I am none," he rasped, voice gravel ground by eons. Whispers flew, cult high priest from Abruzzo wilds, devotees to a pre-Christian deity of harvest and harvest's end, rites culminating October 31st, All Hallows' Eve, when Samhain's horns blew open barrows for the dead. Authorities labeled him sorcerer, his flock accused of ritual eviscerations under full moons, hearts offered on altars of thorned laurel. Kept in isolation cell 7, deepest vault, its door triple-bolted, Luca drew watch duty, the air therein cloying as grave mold, an aura nauseating, sulfur and storm, turning milk to curds overnight. Guards paled passing, one vomited bile depicting writhing forms. Luca, devout Catholic, clutched rosary beads till knuckles blanched, reciting Ave Marias that echoed hollow. Boredom bred leniency. Inmates got chess cards to stave insanity. The nameless shunned all, Bible, smokes, even water sloshing untouched, content staring walls etched with predecessors' scratches, pleas, curses, tallies to oblivion. Concerned for his mind, the warden queried via slot, "What occupies a void like you?" Reply, "A vessel. Fetch stone, rough, unyielding, and paper abrasive to hone it." Baffling, but harmless. Next dawn, Luca delivered, basalt shard, fist-sized, sandpaper strip, thrust through slot on bread tray. Days blurred. Patrols noted progress, jagged edges smoothed, facets emerging under patient rasp. The inmate's chants low as wind through barrows. Luca glimpsed once, torch flare catching a form nascent. Oblong, humanoid, smoothed to egg of flesh, eyes mere divots promising gaze. Unease rippled, communal yard soured. Soccer devolved to fouls, cards torn in tempers, demands barked for bread beyond rations, exercise yards beyond sunup. Free Italy, slurred in shadows, once jovial messers now snarling like curs. Beatings backfired, wets to whetstones. Starvation swelled bellies with rebellion. Warden, balding martinet with Mussolini mustache, convened yard October 30th, eve of unrest's peak. "Cease, swine, or no wine, no loaf," he bellowed, dangling crates of Chianti and Pagnotta as bait. Rejection met with jeers. That night, powder keg lit. Riot erupted at dusk October 31st, All Hallows' Vigil, when church bells tolled for saints and fools. Prisoners surged like horde from Hades, bars wrenched, guards clubbed to pulp, throats torn by teeth filed to fangs. Luca, atop watchtower, witnessed apocalypse. Courtyard slick with gore, men eviscerating mates in frenzies biblical, entrails garlanded like fasces, screams harmonizing to dirge. Fascists retreated, rifles barking escapees felled at walls, but breach yielded one. A shadow scaling ramparts, silhouette slight, vanishing into mist-shrouded woods. Dawn's tally, 87 corpses strewn, blood pooling ankle-deep, survivors catatonic in cells smeared crimson. Head count gaped, one absent, cell 7. Not empty, but occupied. A guard, throat slit ear to ear, heart excised neat as surgery, cavity gaping like accusation. The nameless? Gone. Stone effigy clutched in the corpse's rigor. Perfect miniature man, features his mirror, eyes hollow yet seeing. Search-combed catacombs, hounds baying futile, whispers of guard complicity, bribed acolyte. But interrogations yielded naught, electrodes sparking confessions false. Warden, skin to save, decreed, perished in melee, remains pulped unrecogn. Superiors swallowed, preferring phantom death to spectral flight. Guards bound oaths, silence, or share the pyre. But Luca knew. The carving commenced unrest's climb. Effigy's completion timed to Samhain's cusp, when veil rends and old gods stir. Cult's lore, pieced from sea's tomes. The nameless, vessel for horned one of equinox bloodletting, rites binding frenzy to release. Riot. Not rebellion, but evocation, prisoners' puppets in rapture red. Luca's post revoked, but taint clung. Nightmares of effigy pulsing, whispers in confessional naming him accomplice. Italy choked on dread. Mussolini's grip tightened, but Luca saw cracks. Fascism's facade crumbling under shadows it birthed. By 1930, whispers of war, Ovra eyes everywhere. He fled. Stowed on freighter to France, then Ellis Island bound, arriving December 1930, penniless in New York's moor. Brooklyn's tenements swallowed him. Factory toil, mass thrice weekly, holy water nightly to ward the aura trailing like smoke. No pilgrimages to homeland. Old world's chains snap not easy, he'd mutter, rosary clicking. Grandkids probed his aversion. Pizza scents evoking basilica incense, opera airs twisting to chants, yielding fragments, the nameless, the riot, the stone that summoned savagery. Memoir, penned 1985, sealed till death 1995, unearthed 2024 by granddaughter Maria, serialized on Uncanny after EVP sessions, captured gravel voice intoning none in Rossi family parlor. Robbins's experts, folklore profs from Bologna U, linked to Stragaria cults, suppressed under Lateran Treaty, All Hallows rites persisting underground. 2024 saw spike in Italian prison haunt reports, per Corriere della Sera, echoes of 1928 unrest in EVPs from similar sites. Luca's flight birthed silence, but grandson's dreams persist. Effigy on mantle, eyes following. He escaped, Luca wrote, but we cage his echo. Brooklyn's streets bustle, but October 31st, when saints yield to shades, Luca's kin salt thresholds, wondering if the nameless sails Atlantic wind still. Faith's blade cuts both. Luca learned, guard or guarded, all vessels for the void. If this unravels your certainties, the cult's whisper threading history's weave, subscribe now, free as confession, binding us against the unnamed. Your tale? Spill it. Silence feeds the frenzy. The stone smooths, the veil thins. What carves your night? Choose wisely lest the nameless claim you.